Okay, I'm back at the van. I just wanted to say a little bit about my setup today. It's for this Sedona Big Friggin' Loop race, about 7.5 hour endurance race through the desert. So the bike that I'm on is a Scott Spark 900. It basically has the ultimate build. It's a little bit customized, but it's got the SRAM Eagle drivetrain, running a 32 tooth chainring on that. I really like this SRAM Eagle drivetrain for racing because it lets me run a bigger chainring up front. I can run a 32 instead of a 30, and it just gets me a lot more range, which when I'm just riding for fun it doesn't really matter, but when I'm racing it actually made a big difference. So I really appreciated having both the easy end and the hard end of that whole gearing system. What I did a little bit differently for this race was I actually put this pair of 27.5 plus wheels on. So this is a 29er bike, and I've been riding it like a 29er. Took it as a 29er to Peru for my bikepacking expedition. But for this race, it's a little more chunky, technical. There's a lot of tight switchbacks. So I decided to go with the Industry 9 Backcountry 360 wheel set. The bike handled really great with these wheels, and just as I expected, it was super fun through the technical switchbacks, and I think that the 27.5 plus wheel set definitely helped in that. One thing I was a little concerned about with switching the wheel set was that it might not climb as well, but it actually did. This bike is a climbing machine. I think it's more due to the geometry than anything. Scott changed the geometry on this bike this year, and I didn't ride last year's bike, but I really liked the fact that the shock is out of the way down here, and it lets me run a nice big water bottle in there, and then it also lets me run a full frame bag in here, and the shock doesn't really get in the way, so I like that. But the geometry is also really great for climbing, and having the smaller wheel set did not seem to affect that at all, in my opinion. Got this twin lock system right here where it has 3 positions. It's got full open position where we've got 120 millimeters of travel front and rear. It's for going downhill. And then it's got the middle position, which is where the front fork is still at 120, but the rear is down to 85. So they call that the traction control. And I use that a lot for climbing on single track. And then it's got the full lockout position, which I only use when I'm on pavement or like a gravel road. So it's really nice that you can just push one lever and both the fork and the shock respond. So I really like that about this bike. This bike also goes downhill really well. It's got 120 millimeters of travel front and rear. The new position of the shock also lowers the frame's center of gravity, which makes it better for descending and better for handling. It has the RockShox Reverb dropper seat post. I've been running a dropper post on my race bikes for quite a number of years now, probably since like 2012, and it makes a big difference. So I've got that mounted right up here next to the lockout. I was able to ride it confidently over all of the features, and I pretty much never wish I had a bigger bike. This one just rides great on the uphill and the downhill. It's a great all-around little bike. I ran a Defiant pack daily top tube bag right here, and in that I brought some Kind bars and some small ham sandwiches that I had made, and also some small little breakfast tacos. So those were a really good idea. They were basically just an energy bomb. They had some duck eggs, chorizo, and sweet potatoes in them, and a little bit of hummus. And I definitely recommend trying those on long rides or races. I was a big fan. So that was my fuel source. I had my Skratch Labs right here. I drank about 120 ounces of Skratch Labs over the course of nearly 7.5 hours. So I had my big water bottle here from Pedal Pusher Cyclery. It's a 24 ouncer, so that carries a lot of Skratch. And then I also did use a Osprey pack on my back with a 2.5 liter bladder. I don't typically race with a backpack, but for this one I did, and I was glad that I did. It was nice to have that because the trails were so technical that it is really hard to get your bottle out. So there are only a couple sections where I could actually take my hands off the bars and eat and drink. The rest of it is pretty much full-on technical, so I liked having the bladder for that. This little contraption right here is where I ran my GPS. I stick my phone in there. It's necessary for races like this because the course wasn't marked, so it was totally self-supported and self-navigated, and so I was following a GPX track, and it was necessary to be able to see it from my saddle. That's actually a Toe Peak stem-mounted bag, and this is just a universal phone bag. So I use the app Gaia GPS to navigate myself on expeditions and these types of self-navigated races, and it did really well. I also used Trail Forks as a backup, and I used my Garmin Phoenix to watch as a backup also, and to track my route. The last thing was I wore my Julbo Aero glasses, so these are actually the lighter lenses. The nice thing about the Julbos is they have the photochromatic lenses and they change colors as you go in and out of different lighting. And I've got these lighter lenses and the darker lenses, but when we started the race it was pretty cloudy, so I chose the lighter lenses, and well, the sun did eventually come out. It was a good overall lens. Super happy with my setup for this race, the Scott Spark 900 and the Industry 9 Backcountry 360 wheel set. Thanks to Industry 9 and Pedal Pusher Cyclery in Golden, Colorado on Scott Bikes. Had a really fun day, so pretty psyched about that. Thanks to everybody that makes this possible for me. Whew. I'm gonna feel this tomorrow. Alright guys, thanks for coming along.